Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this session of Spokane Public Schools' Keep Learning series for literacy. Today's lesson is designed for kindergarten students, but anyone who would like to join is welcome. My name is Kate Lyle, and I'm a kindergarten teacher at Roosevelt Elementary School in Spokane Public Schools, and I'll be your teacher for this lesson. This is the first lesson in this series, and if you'd like to rewatch it at any time, it will be available on the KSPS website. Today we'll be learning about main idea and supporting details in a text. We'll be reading to find out how animals and plants change and grow over time. Then we'll be doing some writing with that knowledge that we've learned. You'll need a few supplies for this lesson. You'll need a piece of paper and something to write with. I'll give you a moment to gather your supplies. Great, let's get started. Oscar and the Frog, a book about growing by Jeff Waring. As we're reading, there are some words I want us to preview before we read the text. Let's talk about them right now. The first word is the word gills. Gills are an organ that allow a fish or other animal to breathe underwater. Humans don't have gills. That's why we can't breathe underwater. We have to breathe air. But there are animals that do have gills, like fish. The gills are here in this circled area, and sharks. The gills on this shark are really visible. Gills is a word that we need to be aware of. Here's another one. Sprout. So when something sprouts, especially a plant, is when that plant starts coming out of the seed. This diagram shows some seeds that are sprouting. So that is the word sprout. Hatch is the last word we're going to talk about today. So an animal, when something hatches, it means that there's something inside of an egg and it comes out. So there are some different animals that hatch, like birds. Here's a baby chicken that's just hatched, and snakes also hatch, insects also, and spiders. So that's the word hatch. We'll be talking about that today. Let's read. One spring day by the pond, Oscar saw some creatures he had not seen before. Frog hopped up. They're tadpoles, Frog said. I was a tadpole before I grew up. Oscar stared at Frog. He didn't look like a tadpole at all. Don't be silly, Frog, Oscar said, laughing. It's true, Frog said, and he told Oscar how frogs grow. At first, I looked like a dot in an egg. The egg was as soft as jelly. I grew in the egg, then hatched out as a wiggly tadpole. I could breathe underwater through gills like a fish. There's that word gills. I was hungry for pondweed. It helped me to grow. Later, my gills disappeared as I grew lungs to breathe air with. I grew back legs, then front legs, and my tail started to shrink. After 3 months, I was a little frog. I kicked my new legs and jumped out of the water to live on the bank. What else hatches out of eggs? Oscar asked. They looked in the pond. Frog showed Oscar some eggs that had been laid underwater. Many water snails lay their eggs in pouches of jelly on stones or plants. Here they are. Dragonflies often lay their eggs on a plant stem just below the water. Fish lay lots of eggs. The perch winds hers in long threads around plants, trees, or stones. Here are the fish eggs in this illustration. They looked on the bank, and Frog showed Oscar some eggs that had been laid where it's dry. Many kinds of butterflies lay their eggs on the undersides of leaves. When the caterpillars hatch out of eggs, they eat the leaves. Many birds lay their eggs in nests high off the ground. Here, the chicks will be safe from animals who might want to eat them when they hatch. That word hatch, we talked about that word. Ducks often nest on the ground close to water, so their ducklings will be able to swim quickly away from danger. Do plants hatch out of eggs? Oscar asked. No, said Frog. Most plants sprout from seeds. Each plant makes its own kind of seed. The seeds of apple trees are stored inside their fruit. Strawberry plants have small seeds on the outside of their fruit. Poppy plants have tiny seeds. They are light enough to be carried by the wind. Coconuts are the seeds of coconut palm trees. They are huge and can float. Most seeds ripen above the ground, but the seeds of the peanut plant grow in the earth. Did I hatch out of an egg, or did I sprout from a seed? Oscar asked. Neither, said Frog. You were born. You looked a lot like you do now, only much smaller, with fur and paws, ears, and a tail. You were hungry for milk from your mother. Why was I hungry for milk? Oscar asked. It helped you to grow, said Frog. Milk for you, pondweed for me, leaves for these caterpillars, and bugs for those baby birds. We all need different food to grow. Oscar stretched. Oh, I'm so big now, he told Frog. But you're not as big as you will be, said Frog. Are you? Asked Oscar. Yes, Frog answered. I've stopped growing now. I'm as big as I'm going to get. How long does it take to grow up? Oscar asked. It depends, said Frog. This flower will be full grown in a few days. But this young tree won't be tall until you are a very old cat. The baby birds will be as big as their parents next spring, Frog went on. But the tadpoles will take 3 springs or more to be as big as I am. Each living thing takes its own time. Just then, Oscar saw that his mother was coming. What about me? He asked Frog. How long will I stay a kitten? You will be a full-grown cat by winter, Frog said, as big as your mother is now. Oscar looked at his mother. She was much bigger than he was. Don't be silly, Frog, he said, laughing. It's true, Frog said. Wait and see. Thinking about growing. By the pond, Oscar found out about these things. Beginnings. Living things begin in different ways. Some hatch out of eggs, some sprout from seeds, and some are born. How did you begin? On your next walk, look for living things that hatch, sprout, or are born. Food. All living things have to eat to grow, but they need different kinds of food. Pondweed for the tadpole, leaves for the caterpillar, and bugs for the baby bird. What helped you to grow when you were very young? What do you eat that helps you grow now? Getting bigger. Living things grow at different speeds. Some, like this plant, take a few days. Some, like the baby birds, take a few months. The tadpole, remember that frog, takes a few years. And that tree takes many years. How long will it take for you to grow as big as your mother or father? Oscar thinks growing is great. Do you think so too? Friends, thanks for reading Oscar and the Frog with me today. I feel like Oscar and the Frog is a really fascinating story because it's not a true story. I mean, I know that a frog and a cat can't actually talk about how living things change over time, at least not that I know. But there were a lot of true facts within that story. And I want to talk about what the main idea of the story is, and then see if we can find supporting details that help us understand that main topic. The more I think about it, the more I think Oscar and the Frog is really about how living things grow and change. Even the front cover said a book about growing. So that to me feels like the main idea, that plants and animals grow and change over time. Let's look back in the text and see if we can find some more details. Oh, that's right. I was remembering that the first animal or plant that Frog talked about was frogs. He talked about himself and how frogs start out as a tiny egg and then hatch into a tadpole. And then after it said 3 springs, so we know that means 3 years, that frog turned from a tiny egg into a grown frog. So that seems like an important detail about how animals and plants change over time. That frogs change from eggs to tadpoles to frogs. What else? Oh, I remember. Then Frog talked more about other animals that hatch from eggs. Hatch was that vocabulary word we talked about. So Frog told Oscar that snails and fish and butterflies hatch out of eggs. So that's a different way that animals and plants grow and change, is that some animals hatch out of eggs. So we can add that to our list. Many animals hatch from eggs. So we know that we talked about dragonflies, fish, butterflies, birds, ducks, and snails. Really interesting. Let's see what other supporting details we can find. Next, Oscar asked if plants hatch out of eggs. And Frog told Oscar, no, plants don't hatch out of eggs, that plants sprout from seeds. So that seems like something important that we should add that helps us understand how plants and animals change over time. Most plants start from seeds. So we talked about apples, strawberries, poppies, coconuts, and peanuts. Oh, right. Then Oscar asked about his own life. Oscar wanted to know if cats, like Oscar, hatch out of an egg or sprout from a seed. And the frog told Oscar neither of those were true, that Oscar, a cat, is born. So we had that whole list that was filling up a page. So let's start some more. Let's write across pages like authors do. Some animals are born. Oh, then I remember they were talking about different food that animals and plants need to grow and be healthy. And so Oscar and the frog were discussing some different types of food that living things need to grow. So we know the baby kittens needed milk, the caterpillars needed leaves, and that the baby birds needed bugs to grow and change. I remember the last thing that they talked about is the different amounts of time that it takes living things to grow. That some living things like the flower, the milkweed, grew in a couple days. That cats took a year, that frogs take 3 years, but that there were some living things like trees that took many, many years to grow and change. So plants and animals take different amounts of time to grow. That's another important detail from this text. Friends, now that we've read Oscar and the Frog and we've talked about main idea and supporting details, I'm wondering if you can do something different for me. I'm wondering if you can tell me your opinion of the book, Oscar and the Frog. If you've watched some of our previous lessons, or maybe you just know this, or maybe you've learned it in school, that your opinion is the way that you think or feel about something. So opinions can be, and often are, very different. Not everyone has the same opinion. And something that kindergarten writers do is they tell their opinion, they state their opinion. And they state their opinion and then they provide a reason for their opinion. And sometimes we do that about a book that we've read. So I would like your opinion, how you think or feel about the text Oscar and the Frog. So here's your question for writing today. Did you like Oscar and the Frog? Did you like it? And there's something that opinion writers in kindergarten can sometimes use, and it's the word because. The word because is a word that you can use to provide some rationale, some reasoning. So you could say, I liked the book Oscar and the Frog because, and then state your opinion. Or you could say, I did not like the book Oscar and the Frog because, and then state your opinion. So we can practice. I think I'll state my opinion about something other than Oscar and the Frog. I'll state my opinion about coffee. If you knew Mrs. Lyle, you know I feel very strongly about that. I love coffee because it is delicious and helps me wake up. So I stated my opinion and provided some reasoning. So I want you to answer the question, did you like Oscar and the Frog? And tell me why. Use the word because. After you've finished, I hope you'll share your writing with someone. Thank you so much for learning with me today, friends. I hope you join us next time. Thanks for working hard, learning at home, and being such great learners today. Have a great day and stay safe.